Just wait while that loads up. Okay, can you see that?
Yep,
Lovely.
we can.
Oh, thank you. Okay, that's great. Good start. So I'm Rebecca Wilson-Walsh. I'm the head of counselling at the School Wellbeing Service, which is Schools Advisory Services in-house counselling team. So I'm going to talk to you about ways that COVID-19 has threatened our well-being and in different ways, why it's made us feel the way that it has. And I'm going to do that using Maslow's hierarchy of human needs and motivation, which some of you may have heard of before. It's quite a widely used model. So just looking at the pyramid here, this is the theory of Maslow's hierarchy of needs. So the idea is that we have these varying needs and that we move from the bottom of the pyramid to the top, and we would only move on to the next level of needs. So say from physiological basic needs, food, water, warmth and rest, up to safety needs when the physiological needs are sufficiently met. So we do that and then we keep moving up, and the top is, you know, the kind of the goal, or you know, the good place to be, in that you're developing your personal potential, you know, pursuing creative activity, that kind of a thing. But before that is all the other things that need to come in life. So it might be that that top part, you know, if we're lucky, we'll get to it in sort of later life, as we've built up these other needs. So the other part of the theory which is important is that the longer our needs are denied or not met, the stronger our motivation becomes to have them met, which is why, looking at the belongingness and love needs part of the pyramid in the middle there, why I think the second lockdown has been particularly difficult, because our needs in that area have not been met for a longer period of time. So we'll feel that drive to do something about not being around our loved ones as much, and not feeling that normal sense of belonging that we were used to. So just looking a bit closer at basic needs, food, water, shelter and rest. During the early part of this year, we saw supermarkets not being able to cope with the demand for the food and supplies, and we all joked about the toilet roll panic. But you know, people did worry, start to stockpile, and actually I think it's starting to happen again as some supermarkets have started to limit the amount of items you can buy, just to try and prevent that from happening again. So that was a bit of a threat to us getting what we needed, which was quite stressful for people. But also those who were clinically vulnerable or had to self-isolate couldn't actually go out and get the food and supplies that they needed. They had to rely on the kindness of others to help them with that. So looking particularly at education staff in this area, I think the rest part is really relevant, because the normal flow of the academic year has been taken away this year. Most, you know, teachers are working through summer holidays, you know, looking after key worker pupils, and that time to have downtime and actually rest and recuperate has been different. So we've seen a little bit more of teachers getting to the point of being really stressed or burnt out by sort of, you know, October half term, where normally they would have had more rest at that point. Sorry, I have my screen. My PowerPoint has just disappeared from me. Won't be a moment. Okay. So that's a specific way that has affected teaching staff. So then moving along to safety needs. So we need to have personal and financial security, and our health is the next level of human need. So looking at financial security, you know, that was threatened in many ways for a lot of people in the country, obviously losing jobs or being on furlough and not having the full 100% of pay, and worrying about businesses, whether or not employment was going to continue, and the opportunity to get jobs was also quite limited. So people also, in terms of safety, you know, feeling safe has been tricky this year in terms of just carrying out your normal day-to-day activities, because of the threat of actually either contracting COVID or inadvertently spreading it if you're asymptomatic to someone else. So that feeling of safety, just out and about doing normal things, has been compromised. But particularly looking at education staff, having to work with key workers as children through summer holidays and holidays, just pose that extra bit of risk to them, and actually feeling like they were having to go into an environment where they were around people who'd potentially been, with parents that work in hospitals and things. It just gave that extra element for teaching staff to think about. So looking then at our psychological needs, which is the third level on the pyramid that we looked at, and that is for friendship, intimate relationships, and a sense of belonging. And I think this is where COVID has really threatened our well-being, particularly because we're working at home. If we're fortunate enough to be able to do that, then which has meant we've got limited social contact with colleagues, and then the workplace support, just the interactions you have on a day-to-day, even just the hello in the corridor, that kind of thing, which we need and does give us a lift. Actually, we've not had working at home. We've had to adapt how we work and make sure we've got contact with people through forums like this, and also limited contact with friends and family, for people who can't see the friends and family, perhaps they're shielding, perhaps become quite isolated. So that, again, the relationships and the sense of belonging has been compromised. And obviously the factor of not being able to visit loved ones in hospitals or elderly relatives in care homes. So particularly looking at education staff on this level of need, teachers having to work in smaller bubbles, and then therefore having less contact with other colleagues and opportunities to feel like you belong in the wider community of the school. Even just some schools having to, close staff rooms and the things, and not being able to pop in and just say hi to other people. That sense of belonging was challenged on that level there. So looking at the next level up on the pyramid is esteem needs, and that's our need for acceptance, respect from other people, good self-esteem, recognition, pride, confidence in ourselves, and freedom in our lives. Our exams being cancelled in 2020 has limited opportunity for people to achieve and receive recognition, not only for pupils in schools, but for the teaching staff that want to see outcomes and their pupils that they've worked towards. And confidence, I think we all need that social interaction, and the confidence can be negatively impacted by being at home more or being around people less. And obviously freedom has been very definitely limited due to lockdown and the tiering rules, which of course are necessary, but it has challenged that part of what we need as people. So specifically for education staff, there's been less opportunity to focus on the academic outcomes and gain professional recognition, or sense of personal pride to see the outcomes that are coming through. But I think that on the positive side for this one, that respect from others for working in education, being a teacher, being a TA, working in in a school at all, I think has really increased. I think people have started to really see more how vital the role is and how much respect it's deserved. So I think that's a positive on that one. So just moving on now, we're at the top of the pyramid now. So this is what you will be striving towards once those other needs have been met in the pyramid. So working from, just to recap on the self-fulfillment needs, it's motivation to achieve your full potential, to be creative, to express who you are, to personally develop yourself, and have self-awareness. So on that front, challenges for everybody, or a lot of people, is been from working at home and limiting the social contact and not having the workplace support, not being able to have opportunity in the same way as normal to have opportunity to be creative and to actually pursue new hobbies and things like that. We've been limited to what we can do in a home setting. And again, particularly for education staff, it's been challenging to actually take part in personal development because we're limited in social contact. We might normally do a course, might normally, take part in a group that's about developing ourselves either personally or professionally, but that has been limited because of COVID. So I know that sounds all doom and gloom, but it's just a closer look on the levels of which we've been impacted by COVID. Obviously, putting to one side that the obvious impact on health of the pandemic, but just the other emotional impacts and why it's felt really hard. And that's because we have all those needs that we're trying to meet, and obviously we've had all these challenges that we've gone through. But how has the pandemic helped us? Well, it has brought some silver linings, which you can see here. More time at home with immediate family. So people who are working at home or have been on furlough or unable to work has meant that the families have been together more time together, and increased appreciation and respect for key workers, I think, is a really important factor. I think people have really seen how vital healthcare workers, education staff are, as well as all the other key workers are to our community. And I think increased community bonds have come as well. There's been a drive to support local business and to help local people who are in need. I think Facebook has been a good sort of forum for setting up groups in the local areas for people to help each other out, which is lovely. The opportunity to step back and reflect on your work-life balance, sort of pre the first lockdown. We're all kind of just going on about our business, and it was put on pause, and it's given us the opportunity to reflect on how things were going, and if we're going to the same routines and ways of doing things as we did before. So more focus on basic pursuits and hobbies. I think probably, going out and spending lots of money on eating out and entertainment and things like that. We couldn't do that. We're not been able to do that as much. And so, I don't know about anybody else, but I've found we've played a lot more family board games and read a lot more books and things like that. More basic pursuits that don't require spending money and going out and about, and that's actually bringing you back to basics a bit more, which I think is definitely a positive. So what do school staff need now? Just bringing us back to today and where we are now in the pandemic, that having support is always important. It's always vital to have support. But whenever there's a challenge, I think that if you imagine the set of scales, the challenge and the support levels need to balance. So where the challenge is high, levels of support need to be high as well. And I think it's important to have that support there to enable sort of the best outcomes really for staff and pupils to keep going through the challenging times. And at the school's advisory service counselling team, we're really proud that we've contributed to the support that's offered to education staff this year. And in 2020, so far, we've actually provided almost 10,000 counselling sessions for staff working in education, which we're really proud to have been a part of, and to be able to help to balance out that scale and provide some support. Okay, so thank you for listening, and it's just time for any questions if anyone has got one.
Thanks, Rebecca. That statistic of 10,000 counselling sessions is it's quite impressive.
Yes, yeah, it's a real point of pride really that we've made a little difference there, haven't we, with 10,000 counselling sessions, and so yeah, it is. It's amazing.
Absolutely, definitely keeps you busy.
Yes.
I'm just thinking it might be worth highlighting at this point that with SAS you do have access to the Ask the Experts, and Rebecca is actually one of our experts. So if you're looking for any support for yourself, or if maybe you're looking at different ways in which you can support your staff, then you can contact Rebecca for some advice. What I'm going to do is I'm going to drop the Ask Rebecca. She's got like a little hub that's got some frequently asked questions and a little introduction to herself. I'll drop that within the chat box, so if anybody does want to contact Rebecca, they can go there and they can Rebecca can answer any specific questions that you might have.
Yeah.
That's great. Thank you very much, Rebecca, for joining us this morning. Do appreciate it.
Thank you, Danny.
We haven't had anybody type in any questions, but if anybody does have anything, what we'll do is we'll send it to Rebecca afterwards, and Rebecca can respond to you directly.
That's great.
Thanks very much.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. And next we have Matt Booth, who is here to speak to us about creating a wellbeing culture in 2020.
Good morning. How are you?
I'm well, thank you. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. I'm good.
Looking very festive with the tree behind you today.
I know, it's almost as if I planned it, isn't it? So
you got the home vibes on one side, so it's kind of like you're like looking for the summer but feeling oh, bless you. Well, you are free to go when you want. We are running a little bit early today, so if you want to, as soon as you're ready to go, do
yeah, absolutely, no problem. Thank you very much. I'll just share some slides, so give me 2 seconds.
Yeah.
Can I check? Can you see that?
No, your camera's disappeared, but it's not popped up to.
It's not behaving. So then this is why we come on early, isn't it? So
oh, not to worry.
I tell you what, I'll try and do it through. Can you see that now?
I can, yes.
Perfect, absolutely brilliant. This is always why you log on early. Good morning, thank you very much for letting me be part of today. My name's Matt Booth and I'm the Learning Development Manager for Randstad Public Services. That's our education, care and student support divisions of Randstad. I'm here to talk briefly for 20 minutes this morning about creating a wellbeing culture in 2020. So just a little bit about me before we start. My name's Matt Booth, and I've got 23 years recruitment and training experience. I've worked across the UK and Ireland, as well as Spain and Holland, and I have a master's in certified recruitment practice. I'm an Institute Leadership Management qualified coach and a Randstad International mentor, meaning I work with Randstad staff from across the globe, helping them to achieve their full potential. And I currently manage and coordinate personal development for over 500 employees at Randstad. I'm a qualified team tutor running courses across the UK, and I work with education staff across the country, delivering courses ranging from behavioural management to phonics. So let us start with a quote. We must couple support for school staff with the ambitions we have for children's wellbeing. If we don't, we will be letting down all school staff. If we want our school staff to do what's asked of them, then we need to make sure that their mental health and well-being is effectively supported. So let's start with some statistics. And Randstad run regular surveys of candidates and schools across our network to really find out about lots of different things. And we send out a regular survey about mental health and well-being. In 2019, 31% of 1,992 people who participated in our survey said that work-related stress was a dominant factor negatively affecting their mental well-being. What is more troubling is that these stats appear to be getting worse. We held the same survey 2 years before in 2017. In 2017, 42% of participants described their mental health as very good or perfect. In 2019, that figure had dropped to 22%. So what is well-being? Well, well-being is all about our holistic health, including the physical and the emotional. When we have good levels of well-being, we feel that life is in balance and that we can generally cope well. We feel motivated, engaged, we're resilient and able to deal effectively with daily troubles, as well as bounce back from life's challenges. Good staff well-being is essential for cultivating a mentally healthy workplace, for retaining and motivating staff, and for promoting pupil and service user well-being and attainment. As staff juggle a multitude of different tasks and demands, it's important that everyone is given the right emotional and practical support so that they can, in turn, support their pupils and their colleagues. In addition to having a positive impact on colleagues and children, staff wellbeing can improve performance and job satisfaction, which can lead to reduced staff turnover. It can also help reduce both long and short-term absence, increase productivity, and promote staff engagement. A workplace caring ethos and environment will have a major impact on the well-being of its staff and pupils, and it's important for leaders to define the culture and vision and what behaviours, values, and beliefs underpin it. It's important too for the senior leadership team to build a culture of trust where the organisation can be open about health and well-being and know how to access support if they need it. And for all of this to happen, it is essential for the leadership team, which includes the governors and any other stakeholders, to model good mental health and wellbeing behaviour and practice, and to remember to look after their own mental health and wellbeing also. So let's look at the before our current reality, and it's really important to think all the stats we've looked at so far have been before COVID. But last year, taken off on average by UK workers due to mental health reasons, and 55% of people cited a physical illness rather than mental health as a reason for absence. And that's because 65% of them felt they would not be understood or supported by their boss. 30% of people felt too embarrassed to discuss mental health with their boss, and 27% of people didn't want their colleagues to know about mental health. Indeed, only 35% of people felt that they could be honest with their boss about mental health. As discussed, all these results so far have been pre-COVID, and COVID and the pandemic has brought different strains on our mental health and well-being, and brought old tests of well-being to the fore this year as we've gone through what can only be described as unprecedented times. And according to the World Health Organization, COVID and the effects of the pandemic are expected to increase levels of loneliness, depression, drug and alcohol use, self-harm, and suicidal behaviour. And the Lancet, which is a medical journal, also warns of the risk of financial stress, bereavement, unemployment, homelessness, and relationship breakdown. 6% of furloughed workers and 26% of home workers have increased their alcohol intake during lockdown. Now, when we held a survey from one of our wellbeing workshops of people that attended, 66% of participants said their mental health and wellbeing had worsened since March 2020. One of the things that's really come to the fore, and one of the terms, and the first that we'll look at today and focus on briefly, is presenteeism. And presenteeism can be defined as the practice of being present at one's place of work for more hours than is required, especially as a manifestation of insecurity about one's job. It's really important to remember that you don't have to be physically present at a place of work. It's actually potentially the extra hours that are being spent in front of laptops at home or in front of school books at home where we are still working. And almost half of British people carrying out their jobs remotely during lockdown reported feeling more pressure to be present for their employer and colleagues, with more than a third saying they continue to work despite feeling unwell. Of those who had worked through illness, 40% said it's because they didn't feel they were sick enough to warrant a day off. However, more than a quarter also reported workload as a reason for not taking a day off. 16% cited a fear of redundancy. Let's move on and look at financial well-being. To define financial well-being, although financial education is fundamentally important, knowledge alone doesn't enable change. And whilst financial education is the knowledge and tools to understand your finance, things such as calculating APRs and doing budgeting, financial well-being is about your behaviours, your spending, borrowing, and saving habits, and how they make you feel. 40% of people say they feel they are worried about money. And this has a massive impact because people who are worried about money are 880% more likely to have sleepless nights. They're 760% more likely not to be able to finish tasks. They're 600% more likely to have a lower quality of work. And they're 220% more likely to be looking for a new job. Let's focus on another area, work-related stress, anxiety, and depression. And this can be defined as a harmful reaction people have to undue pressures and demands placed on them at work. And the main work factors cited by respondents as causing work-related stress, depression, or anxiety were workload pressures, including tight deadlines and too much responsibility, and a lack of managerial support. The rate of work-related stress, depression, and anxiety was broadly flat, but has shown signs of increasing in recent years. The Health and Safety Executive ran a survey and found that per 100,000 workers, 1,380 reported some signs of work-related stress, depression, and anxiety. Now, this was taken across all industries. If we separate the education profession, we see that that figure rises to 1,940. So a huge jump above the general average across all industries. Your staff are 75% of your costs. You must nurture them. The majority of schools will spend more money each year looking after their lavatories than they will looking after their teachers. They will have a caretaker to take care of the building. But is there someone who takes care of your staff? Well, the importance of employee health and well-being has risen sharply up the public policy agenda over the past 10 years or so, which has encouraged a broader and more sophisticated understanding of what the concept means in UK organisations. Historically, measures to safeguard the well-being of employees focused on the much narrower management of health and safety to reduce the risk of injury and ill health associated with work. The steady increase in government-led initiatives has been accompanied by a growth in well-being practices on the part of many organisations that address the psychosocial as well as the physical aspects of working life. And there really are benefits of change. Organisations with high well-being scores are likely to be 24% more productive than those with low well-being scores. And Barclays Retail Bank found that the variation in employees' productivity rose 8% from 16 to 24% when psychological well-being was considered rather than just engagement alone. Now, one thing that many people feel is a barrier to forming an effective workplace culture is cost. However, the estimated return on investment of a successful well-being program can be as 9-to-1. However, a word of caution, a survey by Vitality found that whilst employees value wellbeing programs, only 28% actually engage with them. So let's look at the different elements of creating a wellbeing culture. Now, CIPD actually put together these elements as part of a much larger report. They put them together as a pyramid, and I've actually avoided doing that because I feel having them in a pyramid suggests that the one at the top is more important than the ones at the bottom. So I've presented them as separate sections here. The first is engagement. So how do we engage with our people? How do we model, communicate, and involve people with our culture strategy? How do we get people involved with the well-being discussion? How do we get people talking? And once we've created that culture, how do we keep it alive? Who is responsible and what are they responsible for? As we've touched on previously, one of the core elements of creating a wellbeing culture is the leadership. So the culture must start from the top. So what message is being sent by our senior leaders and the people leading the wellbeing culture creation? It will render a wellbeing culture completely useless if we are saying one thing, but the behaviors that we are modeling, the behaviors that we are demonstrating, working late, actively, working longer hours, not taking time away to have lunch, to involve ourselves, it's going to render it useless if our senior leadership team aren't modeling those behaviors. Now, CIPD actually referred to one of the elements as being people management. I would actually prefer to call this people development, because we need to ensure that we make a wellbeing culture part of everything we do. We have to be so careful that wellbeing does not become a buzzword, something that's brought out, at certain times, but actually isn't an intrinsic part of our culture. So we really do need to make sure that it's part of our policies, our procedures, our languages, the language that we use. And we can't assume that our staff actually understand how to work within an effective wellbeing culture. So we need to think about how we can educate, train, and continuously develop people to ensure that they are not just seeing a wellbeing culture, but they're actually playing an active part. I think there are 3 key tips to really kickstarting a wellbeing culture in 2020 and beyond. The first is that senior staff lead by example. I've said it once and I will say it again, because an effective wellbeing culture cannot thrive if senior members of the team are not setting a consistent example with their behaviours and actions, i.e. working when sick or regularly visibly working excess long hours. The wellbeing culture needs to be seen as part of the purpose and values. It shouldn't be a temporary initiative. It should underpin all of the purposes and value of the school and be reflected that way. And finally, it needs to be embedded in ways of working. It should filter down to be reflected in all working practices in the school. Keeping in mind, staff may need guidance in how to do this. Staff may need extra support or training to understand how wellbeing changes affect them. So let me finish with a quote before I push it out to you guys for some questions, if anyone's got any questions. Wellbeing in schools starts with the staff. They are in the front line of this work, and it's hard for them to be genuinely motivated to promote emotional and social well-being in others if they feel uncared for and burnt out themselves. And there is some way to go. 80% of teachers report experiencing stress, anxiety, and depression at work, and over 50% feel severely stressed. Now, this wellbeing workshop has actually been taken as an excerpt from a longer wellbeing workshop that we actually run, which I would love to invite all of you on today's call to. We do actually have a session tomorrow at 4 p.m. So if it is something that interests you, do let me know. And I'll be happy to send you both the notes from today's workshop, but also an invite to our workshop tomorrow. If you can't make our 4 p.m. workshop tomorrow, which does have attendees such including our Randstad Wellbeing and Inclusion Director and our Learning Development Director who will be in attendance, we will be running them regularly in 2021, and I'd love to keep you in the loop with dates as they become available. So I'll just put these details on screen. So if you do want to get in touch with me, don't hesitate just to take a photo of this screen or a screen grab of this screen and get in touch. It would be lovely to carry on the wellbeing conversation with you. So thank you very much for your time today. I'm going to come out of the presentation now and see if anyone has any questions for me.
We haven't had any questions submitted in the chat box as of yet, but what I'm also going to do for you is to drop your National Wellbeing Partnership page in the chat there so that people can read a bit more about what you do, and your contact details are there as well in case somebody's missed your information there.
That's absolutely perfect. Thank you very much for that, and you'll be able to with me through that page anyway. So
that's great. You say you're running some of those sessions in the new year. Is that something?
Yeah, if people are quick, we've got one tomorrow at 4 p.m. That's our last one of the year, but we will be running the workshops regularly going into the new year as well. So they're 2-hour workshops, and they're basically an expanded version of what people have seen today, but we go into a lot more detail as well about the creation culture and well-being.
And is that do you do that kind of for all sectors, or do you do it kind of specifically for education?
All sectors, all specific, it varies really. So if people would like, I'm happy to run the workshop for individual school groups, or you can join our general discussion where there's people from across the public services sector, so from care and from university support as well. So a mix of people. So solutions are tailored to individual needs and requirements.
Okay, that's good. And when you do these sessions, how frequently do you do them?
We have been running them at the moment every couple of weeks, and we're looking to really carry on doing that into the new year. As I said, they're 2-hour workshops. They run on Google Hangouts, so pretty much the same format as this. There are usually guest speakers, myself and Martin Hopkins, who is an ex-teacher, who's actually one of our managers at Randstad, who comes along as well, and usually we bring in guest speakers from Randstad as well, just to join in the conversation. But we'll be running them regularly, and we run them at different times of the day to really suit different people's availability. That's
excellent. Thank you very much, Matt.
Thank you very much for your time today. I hope everyone has a lovely week. Thank you very much, Danny, and have a good rest of your day.
You too.
Thank you very much. I'll speak to you later.
Thanks, Matt.
Thanks, bye.
So we are running a little bit early, but that's okay, because I can see that our next speaker, Steve Burns, is on. Are you there, Steve? You might have to unmute yourself and turn your camera on.
Hi, Danny.
Hi, are you all right?
Everybody. Good morning. Oh.
We're not seeing you at the minute, Steve.
Okay, I've got my video's working. I can see myself, if that's any help.
Yeah.
I can also see that fine collection of instruments behind you. How many of those can you play?
I can't play any of them.
Okay.
I bought the banjo because I was convinced I was going to teach myself, and I thought if it's hanging on a wall somewhere, I'm going to have to learn. And my husband built the guitar.
Cool.
Bit random, but yeah, it's I suppose it's just inspiration there to remind me that at some point I have a job to do.
I know the feeling.
So today you're going to be talking to us about harnessing NLP and coaching.
Yeah.
Excellent. So whenever you're ready to go, Steve, you're free to go.
Cool. Can you see me?
I can. Yeah, I can see.
Oh, that's great. Okay, and I've shared my screen, so I've got a few slides. I don't know if you can see those, Danny.
Yeah, there is like a grey box that's in the bottom right-hand corner. So if you've got anything, I don't know if that's the screen from. I was thinking it might be the screen from Microsoft Teams popping up.
I don't know.
Yeah, we can see all now.
Okay, cool. Right, okay, I'll get started then. Good morning, everybody, and thank you for inviting me this morning. I know this is a busy time of year, so I really appreciate your time. I'm going to talk a little bit about how we use at Torchbeam, which is my little training company, how we use NLP to promote, well, basically to promote what Matt was talking about, really, which is all about mentally healthy schools, mentally healthy staff, and mentally healthy students and pupils. So my name's Steve Burns. I'm a youth worker. I've been for a long time. I'm also a therapist, and I'm a trainer. I worked in pupil referral units for 18 years, and 4 of those years I was managing a unit here in Blackpool, which is where I'm based. And that was an interesting time for me. It was one of those things where what you see lots of all the time is behaviour, and so managing that behaviour became a real issue for me. So I was looking around for things that I could do that would make a difference, really, and that's how I kind of stumbled across NLP. Now, NLP is a horrible name. It stands for neuro-linguistic programming. The only explanation I can give for a name like that is that it was invented in California in the 1970s. And so, you know, it's almost bound to have a weird name. If it had been invented in Blackpool today, they call it something like how to give your head a wobble or how to run your head even better. And that's very much the way we approach it, as a set of psychological tools and techniques and models that are effective, easy to use, and yeah, well, they work. So listen, before I go any further, what I'd like to do is, you guys have been sitting there for about an hour now, I guess. And I don't know about you, but after a certain amount of time, I just my head gets a little bit scrambled and goes a bit custard-like after a certain amount of time looking at a screen. So I want to share with you something called, I'm calling it the 1 minute workout. It's actually a 1 minute zoom out, and it's something you can do either standing up now or from your chair. So I'd invite you to join in, either standing up or where you are sitting down. And it's just a very practical way of giving yourself a burst of those, those endorphins and serotonins, those well-being chemicals that are around in our body. So here's what we're going to do. First of all, just close your eyes for a moment, and if you could imagine a kind of like a fuel or an energy gauge in your mind that would reflect how you're feeling right now. Just notice where that is now, what reading you're getting from that gauge. Okay, and when you've done that, what we're going to do is we're going to exercise every muscle group in your body from our toes to our heads, and at the end of it, we're going to come back and have a look and see if that's made any effect on your well-being. So, where you are, either sitting or standing, first thing I want you to do is start clenching your toes. Just clench your toes and get that tension going, and let the tension flow through your feet, up through your ankles, and into your calves and your knees. That's it. And then into your thighs. So really tense your thighs and your back sides. So now everything below your waist should be really tense. Now I want you to hold that tension and just notice what happens now when you double it. So double that tension, really hold it, and then let it flow up the front of your body through your stomach, into your chest, and up to your shoulders. That's great. And now from your waist up your back, so all the muscles between your ribs, all the way up your back, notice it spreading up to your shoulders. So now your torso is really tense, and you're below your belt. And what you're going to do is let that tension just flow down your arms now. So down through your biceps, into your elbows, into your forearms and your wrists, and now clench your fists. So now everything below your neck should be really, really tense. And you remember what we did just a moment ago? That idea of doubling that tension. Let's see what happens now. Just do it again. Okay, so everything now should be really tense. Hold that tension. And what I want you to do is, first of all, put a big smile on your face. So let's see some teeth. And what I want you to do is look at the ceiling, the patch of ceiling just above where you're standing or sitting. And either out loud if you want to, or just in your head, what I want you to do is start just saying yes, 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 yes. So holding that tension and just repeating yes, and let it get louder and louder, faster and faster. And now relax. Take a breath and just close your eyes and notice if there's been any effect on your internal fuel gauge. Okay, now I can't get any feedback from you, so this has been an interesting exercise for me. I used to do this quite regularly with classes in the PRU, and it got a certain reputation. There was one group who they basically, in order to get any work done with them in the lessons that I was leading, they'd say, we're not starting unless we do the orgasm game first. So I don't know how that happened, but anyway, there you go. Okay, let's move on. I want you to introduce you to this lass, Bernice McCarthy, who was a school teacher, worked in schools like we do in the States in the 60s. And she was also very curious about psychology and the effect of psychology on the young people and the staff that she worked with. And one of the things that she noticed, I mean, she did lots of other stuff as well, but one of the things she noticed was that when she was with a group of young people, often they'd start from the point of view of one of 4 questions. And typically the questions would be, why are we doing this? Another question might be, what are we doing? Or how are we going to do that? Or how does it fit in? How does it make sense? And she got really curious about this. And so she left teaching eventually and studied to be a psychologist. And she came up with this. It's called the format model. And it's a lovely little model for, apart from anything else, you can use this to format each lesson that you do. So the idea is that in the group of people that you're working with, there'll be some people that are sitting there with a why question in their head. Why are we here? Or they might be asking what we're doing, or how we're going to do it. Or they might be asking that what if, what next, how does it fit sort of question. And what she said was, well, until you've answered those 4 questions, you're not going to build the rapport that you need to in order for teaching and learning to take place. So I want to do a quick demonstration with it over the next few minutes, just working with you as a group, because I'm betting that some of you are wondering why you're here. I've hopped onto a few of these meetings now, and it's been dead interesting. I'm dead interested in research and how that affects what we're doing. So I'm guessing you all know about the idea between the link between, first of all, mental health and physical health, and how that plays out in terms of attendance, achievement and attainment for school members, so staff and your students and pupils. I'm guessing, well, I mean, Matt's just introduced us to the idea of the effects of the pandemic on our mental health just in this country, but that's spreading across the world. There's also the idea that you know, then there's a lot of research being started about the effects of the pandemic on young people, and the fact that young people perhaps have been disproportionately affected by that. And then there's that thing about that's just coming through, that if we look after young people's mental health now, then that's going to have an effect on them for the rest of their lives and their careers. So there's a real imperative to kind of, well, as we know, there's a real imperative to help working with the mental health of our young people that we work with. Okay, so I'm guessing that you're kind of all familiar and accept that, and that might be a good place to start. So what do we do at Torchbeam? Well, we reckon that first of all, there's a difference between mental health and mental illness, and quite often those two things get confused. We work to promote mental health. That is the focus of our work. So in my role as youth worker and trainer, and coach as well, what I'm doing is promoting mental health. But we can also be curing mental illness. Now, from our point of view, what we think is that it's much easier, it's much more effective, and it's much more humane to do that mental health promotion beforehand. And we also believe that the best people to do this are mentally healthy teachers and school staff working in mentally healthy schools. And that's where we're coming from. How do we do it? Well, at Torchbeam, what we do is we're accredited to deliver NLP courses up to the level of master practitioner, and that is not for everybody. So we also do bespoke CPD packages for schools that are based around the skills from neuro-linguistic programming and coaching and positive psychology. So we like to kind of have an eclectic approach, and what we can do and what we do is we do a bespoke service. So it depends on what you need and the specific context of your school. So we do those two things, and we also do that one-to-one therapy and counselling and coaching that helps people deal with the situation that they're in at the moment. So we know that by promoting mentally healthy schools, it's going to have a long-term effect on mentally health, to produce mentally healthy young people. But in the meantime, we've got a lot of work to do, especially after the pandemic, just to kind of get people back to that place where they feel happy, where their well-being is high, and they feel resilient to face the next steps. Okay, so what next? How does it all fit in? I'm guessing that having spent about 12 minutes in my company, you've got an idea of what I'm like, but you won't have much idea of what Torchbeam and what we can offer is like. So what we'd like to do is to invite you to come and join us on the 21st of January. It's a free 2-hour taster session. We're running it from 3:30 till 5:30. And we're going to run it in the format of a sort of mini coaching session. So the idea is very much behind doing some of that mental health promotion. And we'll also provide you with the resources that we're going to use in that session, so that they become useful to you in your own context. So that's based on the idea that one size doesn't fit all. Having worked in schools for a large part of my career, I know, and you know, that they're all different. So have a look, see what we do, and see if there might be a fit between what you're doing and your context and the kind of stuff that we might be able to offer you. Okay, that's about all I've got for this morning, Danny. So hello, back to you. Thank you for listening, folks. And I hope to see some of you at least on the meeting on the 21st of January.
What I'll do for you as well, Steve, is I will share your National Wellbeing Partnership page. So that's going to go out there just in case anybody's missed your contact details. Anybody watching this back who's perhaps interested in attending the workshop that Steve's talking about, if you go to our website, click on Whole School Wellbeing, which is the pink button at the top, and then click on the National Wellbeing Partnership. And then from there, what you want to do is look for Torchbeam, and his contact details will be there.
Thank you for remembering that, because I'd forgotten the important bit. How'd you get to know about it? Thanks, Danny. And thank you, folks, for listening. I don't know if anyone's got any questions.
We haven't had any questions at the minute. The session that you're talking about doing in January, is that like a one-off that you're doing, or do you do a couple of those every so often?
Well, it's the first one that we've done, and depending on how it goes, we're quite happy to rerun them, and to make each one a little bit different as well. So there's a sense of progression through them as well, for us as well as for anybody who joins us.
Absolutely. And I'm just thinking here as well, you sent me a link for it as well, which we can share.
That'd be great.
Torchbeam taster session. Let me see if I can drop this into the box and see if that wants to behave. We'll see, it's thinking about it. Oh, I hope it's telling me that my Microsoft Teams isn't responding, so hopefully it doesn't crash.
Okay.
Yeah. Hopefully it doesn't crash, that wouldn't be good.
Don't you love it when that happens?
Oh, I do. If not, I'll certainly put it on the YouTube link that we do, so it's there as well.
That's great. I'll put it on our website as well.
Excellent. So that's something certainly to look forward to in the new year.
Great stuff.
Excellent. Thank you
Thanks
very
again,
much,
folks.
Steve.
Have a lovely Christmas break as well.
See you later.
Cheers.
So next we've got Kathryn Grice from the Teacher Empowerment Project. So we are running a little bit early. I'm not sure, are you there, Kathryn? It doesn't look like she might not be here yet. So what we'll do is, Steve had sent me a link here. I'll just drop it in the chat. Hopefully you can all click on that. Is that you, Kathryn?
Hi, yeah.
How are you?
I'm good, thanks. I'm good. I'm well. How are you?
I'm not too bad. It's the last week, and then it's Christmas next week, so just winding everything down. I suppose a lot of schools are in the same position there, thinking this week and then break. Bless them. So today you're going to be talking about, and I would look at my screen, but everything's kind of locking up on me. You've got empowering teachers to recognise and reconnect their values.
Yeah, that's right. And I've never done a presentation on Microsoft Teams before. And so, yeah, I'm a little bit nervous about this, but we'll see how it goes.
That's all right. Steve, could I get you to stop sharing your screen, please? I think we've still got Steve's. I'm not sure if you're able to share over his.
Let me just see.
Is that okay, Danny?
Yeah, that's good. Thanks, Steve.
Okay, can you see mine?
I can, yes.
Oh, brilliant. Okay, so would you like me to start then?
Yeah, we're running a little bit early, but that's not a problem. You can go ahead and start whenever you're ready.
Okay, fab. Well, that's probably good because I've got about half an hour's worth of a presentation that I'm planning to squeeze into 10 minutes. So, okay, so yeah, my name's Kathryn Grice and I'm here to talk about the Teacher Empowerment Project, which is my baby. But I want to start off by talking about how I went from teaching full-time to the Teacher Empowerment Project. So a little bit about my story, just to give you a background. So I was a head of English and a teacher for 10 years in state schools. And I did the classic thing that I think you do when you do well at schools. I went from my GCSEs to my A-levels. I always knew I wanted to teach, and it's a real passion of mine. So then I became a teacher and then a second in department, then a head of department. And it led to a point where I loved it. But I was working 60-hour weeks, which I'm sure is not uncommon for many teachers in schools. And I was getting to the point of burnout. So I want to stress, though, that I worked in typical state schools. I didn't work in bad or toxic schools, and I loved working in them. I absolutely loved the schools that I worked in. And the 60-hour week thing was strangely addictive. I really liked being a teacher, and I really liked putting the hours. And I always used to say, if there were 48 hours in a day, my job would be the best in the world because I would be able to have a life and teach at the same time. But it was starting to get to the point where my well-being was being compromised. I was putting off having children and my family life was suffering. So when I had my first son, I made the decision to resign during my first maternity leave because I thought if I go back and work the 60-hour weeks that I have been doing, I will never get to see the child that I've just had, which felt really sad for me, to be honest with you, because I love teaching, always wanted to be a teacher. And I went from loving it to feeling like a total failure and almost rejected by the profession. I'd gone from being highly skilled and in high demand to feeling pretty worthless. And a lot of that was my own baggage, but a lot of that is kind of what we do to people that leave the profession, go on to maternity leave, or make alternative choices. It's kind of all consuming when you're in it, but if people step outside of it, we're still on the hamster wheel in it. So we tend to forget about those people and those talented and highly skilled people. So during my maternity, I really battled to reconnect with what it was that I wanted to do and who I was outside of being a teacher. So I went to a careers fair. And the careers fair wasn't anything particularly spectacular, but it really helped me to reconnect with what I was drawn to and what I wanted to do and who I was outside of a mother and a teacher. And what I found was that it really just gave me time and space outside of the school environment to think about myself, my purpose, and what I got into teaching for. So I thought, wow, time and space, amazing. And I thought, wouldn't it be good if teachers had this time and space to connect, to realise their worth and their value? And I remember saying at the event, someone should really do this for teachers. And it made me laugh because I realised that when I was working those 60-hour weeks, there's no way I could have put on an event at that same time. So that's why it wasn't really happening for teachers, because if you're in it, you're really in it and you haven't got time to be going out there and doing all the other stuff. So it kind of dawned on me that if anyone was going to do it, it was probably going to have to be me. So I did. I held an event in the People's History Museum in Manchester, which is a beautiful space, on the 5th of October in 2019. And the aim of it really was for teachers to come and recharge, reassess their worth and reconnect with their purpose and basically empower themselves with options. And then there was a London one planned, but that turned into something else because of coronavirus, which I'll talk about in a little bit. As I was talking to teachers about this, teachers were like, yes, this is brilliant. This is exactly what we need. But what worried me was when I was talking to head teachers about it, I got reactions like this one. So one head teacher said to me, this terrifies me. We don't want them too empowered. They'll all leave. And I thought, God, isn't that a really sad state of affairs that we're almost not empowering our teachers because we're frightened of, if they wake up to what life is like outside of teaching, that they'll leave. What does that say about what it's become like inside of teaching? I did laugh when they said that to me, but it does strike a chord and it makes me think. And my wonderful friend Josh, who sponsored the event, said, if we're not looking after our teachers, then what are we doing? And he really, really understands the importance of education and teachers, and that we really do fuel the future. So the event itself was brilliant. People came to Manchester from Cornwall, from London, from Newcastle. I was blown away by it, to be honest with you, but it goes to show how much we need something where we can come together and think about our options and empower ourselves. People were crying at the event. They were so emotional that they've been through so much as a teacher, and that they had a space finally to just think about it and think about themselves and put themselves first. Yeah, it was brilliant. There was coaching, workshops, careers opportunities, and most importantly, time and space. And for those who attended the event that they were adamant that they were going to leave the profession, what ended up happening was a really strange thing, actually. People came thinking, that's it, I'm absolutely done. I know one man in particular came and he was determined to leave, and he's now an assistant head at a huge multi-academy trust up in Bradford. There was also a woman who I did some coaching with on the day who said, I have to leave, that's all my options. And what actually came out when we had the opportunity to talk to each other was that she really just needed to have a difficult conversation and just manage upwards a little bit. And there were some people that did leave, but some people that left their current role actually just changed context, or they got another job in a similar context. And for those that left a full-time teaching role, they still had elements of part-time teaching within their roles. So it was a really important day, really, for retention and to think about what we can do to look after our staff. The London event that I mentioned briefly actually had to become an online event, and this is available on my website, and it's all for free, and it's a similar thing, really. It's about CPD, careers and income diversification, well-being, and ways to empower your students. So that's all there for free if you should choose to look at it. But why am I talking about events to schools? Well, the wonderful James Pope from Heads Up for Head Teachers, which I highly recommend. It's all free. If you're a head teacher, I would definitely check out James's stuff. He said, whilst I was planning the London one and putting it online eventually, he said, you know, we really do need something like this in schools, because there are lots of teachers within schools who are going through similar things that need positive reframing and need the Teacher Empowerment Project. So why you might need me is for individual teachers who might be on support plan or capability, and I can offer them objectivity and opportunities to reframe. I can also get to the issue at hand, because we know when people are on support plans or capability, it's not always the teaching that's the issue. It can be things outside of teaching. It can be their personal life that's having an impact on the teaching that's the real issue. It can be issues with management that's having an impact on their teaching that's creating issues. So I can really offer some objectivity and reframing around people on support plan and capability, or those people that might be facing voluntary redundancy or just redundancy in general, coming to the end of their contract, retiring, which I know we think, oh yeah, we'd really look forward to that. But actually in other sectors, they call this resettlement, because actually retiring isn't always a jump into a happy future. It can be quite unsettling when so much of your identity is tied up around being a teacher, that you kind of have lost the connection to who you really are and what you want to do outside of teaching. So empowerment coaching from me can help to reframe, reshape and bring positivity to teachers in those situations. And then whole school, I've started to do this, which has been lovely. I'm really enjoying it. I'm looking forward to doing one at the start of the year as well. Discussing approaches to wellbeing with head teachers. I've spoken to quite a few head teachers about their approach to wellbeing, what they could potentially do, and really trying to reconnect them to the leaders that they set out to be in the first place. We know that school can often, when we're in the hamster wheel, we can really lose sight of what we are aiming to do and what our values are really telling us that we should be doing. I can also signpost and be a critical friend, and whole school training, which I'm really looking forward to doing more of in the new year. So yeah, those are the things that I can help with. So yeah, just to recap then, there's Empowerment Online, which is a bank of empowering videos and resources. We've got people like James on there talking about heads up for the head teachers. We've got people like Andy Buck on there discussing how you can have difficult conversations. There's lots of other brilliant people on there from the National Wellbeing Partnership too. Teachers, we've got objective coaching and mentoring. I've got group coaching as well that I can do if you've got a group of people who are facing redundancy. And then for whole school, your wellbeing approach and training. I did do a lot of whole school stuff for head teachers for free, but it got to the point where I was so full up that I ended up having to charge for it. So yeah. And then I just want to talk about collaborators and signposting. So just to go back to this, there are some brilliant people that I work with. One company that I work with, the Fardad Foundation, I just want to signpost some great work that's going on at the moment. So Migrant Leaders Connect, they really empower students actually, and they empower students who are from disadvantaged background, or they empower students who are first or second generation migrants to connect them to FTSE 100 mentoring and work experience opportunities. So if you want to talk to me about that, I'm always happy to talk about that. Equally, the Fardad Foundation is also connecting schools with digital literacy. So if you need any, if you've got disadvantaged students that need any tech and you need to find the funding for that, we can find the funding for that for you. So I'm always happy to talk to people about my work with the Fardad Foundation because they're just brilliant. And then also just other people that I'm always happy to talk about are the following. So flexible teacher talent. I really believe that schools should be operating more flexibly. It is 2020. We should definitely be offering more flexible working. James, as I've mentioned, is brilliant. And then yeah, all the above people I work with quite closely. They don't pay me, so I'm not I'm not paid by them to talk about them or in any way, shape or form. I just think that they're all brilliant and well worth connecting with. So if you've got any questions about any of those, I'm always happy to talk about those. The last thing that I really want to mention as well is myself acting on behalf of the Teacher Empowerment Project and Mightify, who do what I do, but for the emergency services, so police, firefighters and paramedics. We are coming together to talk about the issues that we're facing on the front line. So whether that's diversity, flexible working, what should we do about putting people first in our sectors, and that is happening on the 13th of February in 2021, and it's going to be free, and the more people that join in the conversation, the happier we'll be. So that's the last thing from me. You can contact me on the email, or you can find more about the project on that website. So thank you very much for your time.
Thank you very much. Just having a little look here to add your page to the chat. It's just the event anybody does want to get in touch with you. Again, as I said earlier, if you are watching this back and you obviously not have access to the links that we're throwing in the chat, go to our website, click on the pink link, go to National Wellbeing Partnership, and you can find the Teacher Empowerment Project there as well. I've read a bit about what you've done when when Andy sent it through, the one thing that I always find that we found kind of with a lot of the National Wellbeing Partners is so many of them used to be teachers. So I suppose it's one of those things, you know exactly what's going on in schools, you know what it's like, you can empathize with somebody a lot more than, say, I've never been a teacher. I don't think I physically could teach a classroom full of children. Every time I've gone into my son's class and they all start yelling at once, you're just kind of like, okay.
Yeah, no, I think as well, when you're not teaching, you almost feel a responsibility to give back. So when I was in that situation where I felt really rubbish about life, I think, God, how many teachers out there are feeling like that right now who I can help? So yeah, I do think there is a little bit of, and we're very giving in nature as a profession, so I do think yeah.
Yeah, I think that's one thing we touched on before. I hosted another session for Andy, and during it, I think every single National Wellbeing Partner used to be a teacher. And I was saying about how nice it is that obviously there was a point in time where well-being wasn't as important to schools. It wasn't kind of at the forefront of what they were doing. And there were, unfortunately, a lot of teaching staff that had left. But the good thing that's come from that is a lot of them have kind of turned around and said, no, this is how we for teachers, for support staff, for anybody that's working in the school, and for pupils and their parents, which I think is great when you're looking at.
Yeah, and I do think that, actually, I forgot to say that in the presentation because I was like racing through it because I knew I had quite a lot to say. But one thing that I really am passionate about is reconnecting teachers and leaders to their worth and their agency, because we forget as teachers that we do actually have a lot of power and agency. We often give it up and think, well, the DFE gets to decide. Ofsted decides, my SLT decide what happens with my career and my life. But actually, we're really powerful individuals and we've got an awful lot of say about how we lead in our schools or how we lead our own lives. I think it's such an important thing to connect with, for sure.
Absolutely. And I think one thing that the pandemic has certainly done is, I don't think, after homeschooling kids, I don't think many people take teachers for granted anymore. I think that's one of the things. The first week I was trying to do work and help my son, it was just like, I don't know how the teacher does it, but they're amazing. And please come back.
Even me, though, to be honest with you, I'm not going to lie, even teaching my own son, I'm secondary, but my son's primary, I found it really difficult. I couldn't wait to give him back to the primary teachers.
Oh, that's good. That's fantastic. But yeah, I think the work that you do is great. We've shared your page there, and anybody that's interested in getting in touch should find you on the National Wellbeing Partnership.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you very much.
Do
I just leave then? Can I just go? Or
yeah, you can. We've not sharing your screen anymore, so we, like I say, we are running a little bit early today, which isn't a problem at all. But we've got our next speaker, and I apologize because my computer has completely frozen, so I think it's Liz that we've got next. Is that right? Oh, we've got you on mute, Liz.
Oh yeah, hiya, I'm here.
Hiya, you're right.
I'm just trying to hide my background because my office is so messy. It's got push chairs and all sorts in it.
Oh, bless you. It's all right. You'll be sharing a presentation in a moment, won't you?
Yeah, you still might be able to see me, hopefully. Do you want me to put my slides up?
Yeah, if you're ready.
Hang on a minute. Oh, hang on. I'm not as good at Teams as Zoom. Slideshow. What can you see that? Hang on. There we go. Oh, it's just. Can you see that? Yes.
Yep, we can see you now.
Hold on a sec. Just getting everything ready. Hello everyone. If you want to put your cameras on so I can see rather than talking to some dots, I'm happy with that. I'm Liz Robson-Kelly, Managing Director of Worth It. So we're a social enterprise based at Loughborough University. I'm a psychologist that specialises in whole school approaches to positive mental health and wellbeing. I'm also a university teacher at Loughborough University, and I teach the module for staff, workplace wellbeing. So I'm going to be presenting our whole school step-by-step model for positive mental health and well-being that we've created through multiple sort of synthesis of the literature, if you like, as well as practical experience and know-how from working with over 170 schools nationally and a couple internationally. The aim of my little presentation is just to build awareness of what an effective step-by-step whole school approach to positive mental health and wellbeing looks like, give you a bit of clarity because it can be very overwhelming and confusing, and it can feel ambiguous, intangible. Wellbeing is this fuzzy concept, a buzzword. It's something we've been working on since 2014, so it's not new to us, but it feels like people are catching up with the things that we've been thinking all along, and hopefully give you some food for thought that could be a next step in what to do next. So before I go any further, I just want to explain one of the key theories of wellbeing that underpins the work that we do at Worth It. So I'm a positive and organisational psychologist, and all our work is based on applied positive psychology and coaching psychology. So this is a really nice diagram that explains wellbeing and the dynamic nature of wellbeing, and really how the school context can really support children and staff and young people's mental health and wellbeing. So in order to have good wellbeing, you need to be feeling good and functioning well. So feeling good feelings day to day and overall. So that doesn't mean you have to be feeling fantastically amazing all the time. It just means that most of the time you feel good and you are able to experience positive emotions. That you function well and your needs are met. So this is where, you know, Maslow kind of stuff comes in, that you feel safe and secure, you have friends, you feel confident, you have autonomy, can make decisions about what's good for you and good for those around you. Wellbeing isn't just about individuals, it's about the collective and how people can be effective together as well. And then we have the personal resources, which is the blue square here, which is the strategies that you can learn and are teachable that can develop wellbeing. So these can be taught within an embedded curriculum. They can be taught within specific targeted programs for children that need that support. More staff interventions. I'll come on talk about staff in a minute. So based on some of my research I've done, it's around strategies that develop self and emotional awareness, thinking skills, and relationships. And relationships, positive relationships, connection and belonging are absolutely fundamental to the approach that we do at Worth It. And if you're thinking about developing wellbeing in your school, the first place to start is with relationships and connection, and everything else builds on that strong foundation. That would be my advice. And then we have external conditions, which is the school environment. Sorry, my dog's barking. I'm having a bit of a chaotic morning because my toddler's been sick and had to come home from nursery, so my husband's looking after him and the dog's now barking. It's my belief and hope that the school environment or the school community itself is a wellbeing intervention where the children that go to your school, their wellbeing is improved just by going to your school. So I will talk about how that is possible in a minute, but the external conditions include school environment, include home, family, community, and the contextual factors for wellbeing. So when you're looking at developing wellbeing in your school or positive mental health, it's kind of all of these things interplay together, and they provide feedback loops that enable positive mental health to emerge. So the work that we do at Worth It is about helping schools put the right conditions in place so that wellbeing emerges and becomes sustaining, self-sustaining, and it's totally possible. And I've seen amazing practice. So you might be sort of focusing, especially at the moment, on pupil mental health and wellbeing. You might be very concerned about the negative effect that COVID has had on pupils. Rightly so. Numbers used to be 1 in 8 children and young people had a diagnosable mental health problem. Now it's I saw a recent survey that said it's more like 1 in 6 during the pandemic, especially adolescents. They're a big area of concern, obviously, because that developmental need that they have to be together and be with their peers, and they've in some cases not been able to, or it's been in, it's been out, chaotic, unsettled, disengaged, all those kind of things. could be real worries. So what's the best way to go about supporting them? Is it a pathway to specialist support? So this is where you might be referring to external agencies, hopefully CAMS, if that you have CAMS local, that's accessible. Obviously sometimes it's not, quite often, or like third sector organisations like Relate or counselling or something like that. So the children or young people that need that targeted intervention specifically, because it's something that needs to be provided by a specialist, potentially outside of school. And then you have targeted programmes, which could be inside the school. And then we also have a taught mental health and wellbeing curriculum, which is the embedded curriculum. So that can be including PSHE and RSE, which is obviously mandatory now from 2020, but it could also be really creative and amazing practices I've seen where schools are embedding strategies for wellbeing, those things I showed you in the previous model, into the everyday curriculum. So this model to explain how the dynamic, how it all interplays and interconnects together within a whole school system. And we call it a system rather than approach, because approach is a bit fuzzy and ambiguous. And we were also integrating system psychology, which means instead of looking at each part and sort of drilling down into the silo of that part, we're looking at the connections and the relationships and how they interplay and interact together, because the school is a complex dynamic system, so you need to take a systems approach. So here I have the 3 bits that I've mentioned on this slide. The pathway to specialist provision, which might be referrals out, or they might be pathways within your school, and all staff know about those pathways and can refer into them. They're not stigmatised, so they're accessible, clear pathways. We also have a targeted prevention programmes, which is where Worth It originally started, and my work originally started providing targeted programmes for children and young people. But what we found was that there was a ceiling in the impact, because the environment that they were in the school environment, wasn't facilitating that change that those young people had been through. So that's how we ended up starting training staff and then doing whole school approaches. And then we have the universal taught wellbeing curriculum. But really, a focus on pupils is a focus on the whole school system, because you need all of these parts to be interplaying together to really effectively deliver whole school mental health and wellbeing. And you might have started, this isn't a way of sort of saying, it's like scaring you. It's already saying, well, what have you already got in place? What effective practice have you got? And how does it map to this model? So we've also got in the middle leadership and management with at the core. So a leadership and management that values and believes in, puts wellbeing at the top of the agenda in every meeting, in policy, in practice. It's really key to school culture and ethos. That you've got staff development and training, and that's staff development in order for them to know strategies to support the children and young people that they're working with. Then we also have staff wellbeing initiatives, which are initiatives led by staff that support their own wellbeing, as well as if you need more targeted intervention for staff who are struggling with stress, or they need some resilience support, workshops, coaching, that sort of stuff. So you have both of those, and that because staff wellbeing and children's wellbeing are 2 sides of the same coin, and you really, although you might be focusing on the reason why you're working on staff wellbeing is to support children's wellbeing, because like I said, wellbeing is facilitated through relationships and interactions and maintained by those staff. So even if you're thinking we need to support the children, it's okay to start with staff, because improving staff's wellbeing will support children's wellbeing or young people's wellbeing. So that's that's sort of the staff layer, if you like. And then we have the children and young people's layer. So we have taught universal wellbeing curriculum and an emergent day-to-day experience of wellbeing. So that's where wellbeing is facilitated through rituals and assemblies and everyday practices that you do as a school that can be mapped to a wellbeing framework. And then we have targeted prevention programs, which are specific interventions for children or young people who are more at risk of developing mental health problems, such as young carers, care leavers, LGBTQ, military children, all sorts of young people that are more likely to struggle, so might need a range of interventions. But those interventions don't necessarily have to be like counselling. Interventions can also be stuff like sports or nurture groups or anything really that's going to provide meet a targeted need. And then we have the culture and ethos of positive mental health and wellbeing that's embedded through policy, process and place. So that includes the physical environment, policies that you have that are lived, not laminated, and processes such as marking processes, achievement and, you know, attendance, attainment, all those kind of processes are ways of embedding well-being. But that's maybe not where you might start. You might end there. And then we have parents and carers feeding in to the culture, and also agencies and key stakeholders, because you might be working with outside agencies such as us to help you develop this, or agencies might be providing elements of the provision that you have, and that can be including like stuff like volunteering, charitable giving, sports clubs, drama plays, choir, anything that's going to help children experience well-being. Quite sort of a takeaway for you to think about against this model is what have you already got in place and what is already working well. This isn't reinventing the wheel. This is building iteratively upon effective practice that you already have. Here's an example, a lovely example from Oakthorpe Primary, which is a little rural primary in Leicestershire. So it's an ex-coal mining area, and there are 90 children primary with 2 year groups per class, and they specifically focused on a positive psychology intervention called positive emotions, where they explicitly taught that in the curriculum, and it was implicitly experienced through that day-to-day experience of wellbeing that I talked about. So they were teaching the children what are the positive emotions, what do the words mean, how can we experience them, and they do like an assembly of the week, and then they'd implement that throughout the whole curriculum. And this is in their school hall. They do this tree every year, and they've got the positive emotion words at the bottom here: joy, pride, awe, love, hope, gratitude, things like that. And then they have leaves of beliefs, the belief leaves. So every child puts a belief and they put it on the tree, and it's just such a beautiful thing. They do a lot of work around goal setting, and they have like a goal setting star tree thing that they have, and that everyone puts their goal for the term or the goal for the academic year on there. It can be things like I want to do a backflip, or I want to get better at my handwriting, anything that's going to help be intrinsically motivating. Super strengths for resilience, so they specialise in a strengths-based approach, which is something I can't cover in 15 minutes. It's massive, but really amazing, and supporting the kids to be more resilient. The reason this school came to developing a wellbeing was that it initially started to be about attendance and attainment and attitudes to learning, and that's how they ended up focusing on wellbeing, because they realised that wellbeing underpinned successful learning. And then they do this project with it. They focus on the ideal self, and they kind of talk about the real self and the ideal self, and how do they get closer to being the ideal self, and what are the strengths that they already have within them that help them be their ideal selves. And if you basically, this is a very brief snippet of a bigger workshop that I do called the Discovery Workshop. I will post a link in the chat. You can join. It's free. It's online. The next one that we're doing is on the 18th of Jan. So it's aimed at school leaders or mental health leads. And yeah, just sign up for it. Come along. If you can't make the 18th, there'll be other ones that we'll be doing every few weeks. So yeah, book on that. So this is just a very brief snippet of that. And yeah, I've also got this is our contact details if you want to stay in touch. If you want to find out more about our model, we've created a new program that's just trialing it. We're going to launch it again in the new year, and it's for designated mental health leads. So the best thing to do is join our Facebook group if you're interested, or if you're on Facebook and you want more help, support, ideas. We do a regular Facebook Live every Tuesday. I'm doing one today about strategies to look after your own well-being. And has anyone got any questions? Feel free to ask me. Anything I've mentioned resonate with anyone? I don't know how long that was, Danny.
I'm not sure. I think it's about right, but we're running a little bit early, so
okay.
Not to worry at all. So how frequently do you do these workshops that you were talking about?
Well, we did about 6 just before. We did the last one on the last week, was it, or the week before last? So we did about 6. We had about 350 people enroll on it, and about a quarter of those actually attended. So because people like sign up for stuff and then don't attend.
Yeah, I think it's very typical. I think people will go, yeah, I'm going to sign up for that. That sounds interesting, and then life gets in the way. I think that's one thing that we've kind of seen since, in particular, since the start of the whole COVID situation, is that what works today for tomorrow it's just, it's going to happen, and you just have to deal with it as it comes. What I'm also going to do is drop your National Wellbeing Partnership page in the chat bar there, so if anybody does want to read anything more about you and the offers that you've got to our clients, they can see that there, as well as to contact you.
Yeah, real.
That's great. How frequently, when you say you run these sessions, have you got plans for the new year to run?
Yeah, so we're setting up like a membership site for designated mental health leads. So it's going to be a library of all the resources to do the whole school approach that I've just shared with you. So how to order that you've already got. We've also got a whole another wellbeing framework that I haven't even mentioned that like builds a curriculum. It's part of targeted intervention. It's the how-to basically. So the whole wellbeing club is called designated mental health lead wellbeing club, and we're just doing a pilot at the minute. We're just starting this week, and then we're going to do a big launch in the new year, in probably March, before Easter. And yeah, so it's everything a school mental health lead will need over a period of few years to implement a whole school approach to positive mental health and wellbeing. So all evidence-based and practical, with lots of tools and materials that we've used with young people ourselves, because we used to do all this work directly ourselves, but then we realised we could help more people if we let them know how we do it and share our approach with them, and it's much more sustainable and can help much more children and young people that way.
Yeah, absolutely, definitely agree. Thank you very much for joining us this morning. Thank you for your presentation.
No props. Do you want me to send you the slides so you can?
Yeah, you can share the slides, and what we'll do is we'll put them on your National Wellbeing Partnership page, so anybody that's watching this back that wants to access the slides can access them from there.
Oh, brilliant. Okay, I'll email them over. Yeah, if anyone's got any questions though,
nothing in the chat box. We tend to find that usually we don't really have very many questions on here, but then usually afterwards we get a few people that drop some questions into our partnership page. So if anybody does have any questions, or if anybody's watching this back on YouTube, you can drop us an email. Where you can email the National Wellbeing Partnership specifically is to email nwp@uk-sas.co.uk. And we can put you in touch with anybody that's spoken today, and if you do have any questions about the partnership or any of the partners within it.
Yeah, real. All right, thanks Danny, and good luck with the rest of your event today.
Excellent, thank you very much, Liz. So because we had one of our speakers that dropped out this morning, we are going to be wrapping up now. Normally here we would have one final speaker just before 11, but we're only looking at 5 speakers today. So I know that unfortunately Andy couldn't be with you today because he had some annual leave, but I know one of the things that I think he would want to certainly say at this point is thank you to everyone for all of your hard work since you've gone back in September. It's not been an easy feat. You've had a lot of challenges, very much an uphill battle, and to see some of the resilience that we have seen, some of the stories that we've heard, it's just absolutely phenomenal, and everybody does deserve to definitely take some time at Christmas make sure that they've get some rest, that they look after themselves, take some time to spend time with their families, and do things that you just generally want to do. Andy has shared with us on Friday, and we've got an e-shot going out today to all SAS clients. There is a well-being gift that we're sending to everybody. It's from one of our National Wellbeing Partners. Is a ebook on how to improve sleep. It's quite a big ebook, and it's something that you're welcome to share with your staff. And we definitely encourage people to take the time and look after themselves. As I believe Andy's mentioned before, we are looking at starting these again in the new year. We will message everybody when we've got some new sessions to book. But we've got a lot more partners that have got a lot more information that we can share that hopefully helps you to create a better wellbeing culture within your own school. If you do have any questions, do feel free to get in contact with either Andy or myself, and we can direct you to any of the partners. But I do appreciate you taking your time this morning to join us for the Wellbeing Meet, and hopefully look forward to seeing you in the new year. Thank you, everyone.